Hey guys, we're back for Workshop Wednesday. We're here talking about technical design and the technical package, understanding how the role of the technical designer is really about creating seamless communication between your apparel designers and your factories. If you work for yourself or your own brand, you may be doing this role for yourself. If you work for a smaller company, you may also be doing elements of this as well. Even working for a larger company, I've actually been very much hands-on with a lot of the things that I'm sharing with you. And so I'll just remind you what we showed this last course and give you guys a heads up on, what you could expect from a digital experience from the call out process. So what I want to do is to take you a second. I wanted to open up the screens here so you could see what I'm looking at. I'm going to just show you what I showed you last week, and then I'm going to take you into Gerber Technologies Unique PLM so that you can see what it looks like there. So what we wanted to do was to kind of explain to you how the call outs really make a difference in terms of how you get your product back from the factory. This is really one of those times where a picture is worth 1,000 words, but so are the little notations on the side. So I'm going to show you how we go about doing that. And I think you'll really appreciate understanding how to communicate effectively with a factory, even some of our shorthand of the phrases that we may use in order to do that. So I'm going to show you what I showed you last week, which is, let's see here. I'm going to show you. So here's where we left off last week. I'm going to zoom back out just so you can see a little bit more of where we started. This is a style that I shared with you last week that was a part of my collection. I use this just because this is a way that I actually learned how to do call outs, and I continue to do call outs this way quite frequently, only because I really find that using these red wands to point out the key design details is really helpful for me, and it's also helpful for the factory. The key things that you want to note is that you don't want all your wands crossing one another because it can get like a web of confusion. So you want to make sure that those details are clearly pointed out, but you don't want them overlapping and crossing across the garment. So if you notice, they're all kind of radiating out around the garment without a single line crossing another. So this just really helps the factory to be able to see clearly what all of these various elements are. And so the more precise you are, the simpler the language you can use, and the clarity of detail, all of these things are going to help you get to a sample that looks like what you designed. Last week, we talked about sharing an inspiration image. And that inspiration serves a lot of things. It's the color, it's the texture, it's the constructions. It may be the fit that you're going after. So there may be a slight difference between your inspiration image and then the image that you were actually able to sketch as a technical sketch. If you're not a super proficient sketcher, sometimes it's helpful to have something like a reference image to be able to support the stylized appearance that you're going for. So if for some reason there's something different, you can say, please follow the reference image for fit and style, or please follow the reference image for the aesthetic. And so even if your sketch is off, you can tell them, don't follow me here, follow me there. And that really helps to get everyone on the same page. But what also helps people to get on the same page are the call outs. The call outs are key here. And so as I shared with you before, this is the way I've done it. I grew up doing it in the fashion industry, using these various like red wands, kind of pointing out all of these various details, and then getting a chance to speak very specifically and clearly about each individual spot. I also always put a phrase at the top that gives a bit more direction on what's happening here. So the seam allowances, how they should be sewn, kind of an unless otherwise noted kind of detail. Anything that I want to note regarding the waist shape, anything that I want to denote about the interior constructions that you clearly can't see here. I have actually taken the time to go and open the jacket and do a sketch of the jacket open so that you can see some of these additional details that I'm only speaking of. So for example, this half moon detail, you may not be familiar with this, but if you take out a jacket specifically one that's lined, you'll probably notice that somewhere around your label, there is a piece of fabric that will probably match the outside fabric that's cut in the shape of a half moon. And so this is what we're talking about, is a half moon that's clean finished to the lining so that you can't see any of the edges of the fabric. It's just kind of a beautiful, nice seam. And so when we say clean finish, we just want them to have just a clean seam, no top stitching, and it's just a beautiful place to put your label. So that half moon clean finish on the inside of the back of the jacket is what we're referring to there. But what I want to do is I want to shift gears. So we did a jacket last week for callouts. I'm going to shift gears to our product lifecycle management platform. And so this is where Gerber Unique PLM is a product that we use here at the ACC Fashion Incubator. They're one of our partners. And we have the opportunity to kind of look at styles in a variety of different ways. But what I did here was I went into one of our styles to look at a dress that we had prepared for one of our demonstrations. So when I go in here, you can see that I have, let's see, I don't know if you can see the image stream update, but you can click to see a larger picture. I'm going to close this because I'm not sure if you're able to see it in the shared screen, but here you see that they've put letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So you see all these various letters. And all of these give me an opportunity to talk about what these various components are. So what I do for something that's going to be labeled in this way is I actually go in to the comments section and I start to describe what A, B, C, D, and so on. I start to describe what all of these different elements are. If I were doing this particular style, I would also make sure, oh, they have it for F. So I'll put F in as well so we can kind of talk about what's happening with the tie. So these are all good things for you guys to see. So I would do all of my letters. Let's just do it for the experience. Welcome to the fashion industry. This is what we do. All right, so what do I do here? So I start to go in and I actually start to name what is happening on the garment. One of the reasons why I still prefer wands is because if a particular element is hovering over an area that may need to be defined but isn't clearly stated, it's hard for me to know which thing I'm referring to. An experienced or seasoned designer or a seasoned experienced factory, or they've done your work before, so they know what you're talking about, will probably not be confused. But for kind of if it's the first time they're working with you and they see something like this, you're going to get a lot of emails because they may not know exactly what's happening on your sketch. So let's say A is describing the straps. So let me see if I can just, oh, okay, that feels a lot better, I hope. A little bit more, oops, a little bit more visibility on what's happening on this screen. All right, you should be able to see better now. It was a little small. So let's see, the letter A is, let's see, it's a 1/4 inch self, which is, you know, the kind of fabric that it is. It's the body fabric. Self fabric strap with adjuster. That's about right because we're using an adjuster. I would also go in and I would say it's also going to be a 1/4 inch adjuster. And this is really the thing that allows you to expand or contract the strap. The understanding is that there's only going to be one per strap. For B, it looks like this is describing the neckline. So it looks like center front, we always abbreviate it as CF. So I'm going to put it in parentheses here, center front, neckline, is V-neck. The funny thing about doing some of these call outs is that it actually looks like something that, of course it's V-neck, I can see it. But if I wasn't sure what was happening on the sketch, I may have taken this piece as an insert instead of the back. You see, they shaded it here, that little triangle, to look like it's the inside back of the garment. But it's really well, it is the inside back of the garment, but it looks like it could possibly be like a triangle shaped insert. And so I want to be very clear that that is not what I want, because otherwise I'm going to get back a dress that has 3 different fabric types because it's 3 different colors, and it'll be a scoop neck dress that probably won't wrap. That's a problem because this is a wrap front dress. So the next thing that I'm going to call out is C. And C is where I'll say something about the fact that this front bodice panel, that's what we call the top portion of the dress, the bodice. The top, this panel here, is an overlapping piece. So we'll say bodice panel overlaps. And I would probably say the bodice panel overlaps as the specification. And I will tell you why you want to do that, because you're going to describe this in what we call the point of measure. You're going to tell them, please see the point of measure. If you find that when you do this garment, that your overlap varies from 4 inches to 5 inches to 6 inches to 3 inches of overlap across the center of the body. Let me put that overlap center as the specification. If you find that there is a difference in the overlap, you're going to want to change it in only one place. You're not going to want to have to change it in the measurement specifications and in this description. Guaranteed something will go wrong if you have 2 different measurements in different parts of your tech pack. So it's really important that in your call outs, you're only talking about what the machine needs to do. In the point of measure, you're going to talk about what the pattern maker needs to do. So if you think about, okay, is this a machine function, like a stitch detail, or a bit of like kind of overall, like very general idea about what's happening in the sketch? Or is this about a pattern piece? Is this about a specific overlap measurement that I need to communicate? I typically will do that for a lot of different components of the style. And so it's really important that you take your time and think about who needs to see this. In the call outs, it's going to be most likely the machine operator who needs to know what the stitches are for each piece, because the pattern's already been done, the fabric's already been cut, and it just gets delivered to them to execute. They need to know why and where it goes, so they know what they're going for in the overall effect of the style. D is going to be darts. This is another time, and we'll call it a bust dart because that's where it's located. And again, I will say, please see the point of measure for length and finishing. Again, so again, this is really where we kind of talk about the difference between a style line versus a hard line. Last week, I kind of introduced the idea of this to you, where I talked a little bit about the difference between what happens with these very light lines here and what happens with these more solid lines. There's times when we're trying to communicate that there's some soft gathers that are happening when you tie the belt around the waist. These aren't seams, these aren't darts. We aren't making darts that curl and loop like that. If you can see a little closely what's happening there. These aren't darts. This is just how the skirt and the dress move. But this is a dart. And so one indication is that there's no descriptor on it. So there's nothing that's calling that out as a specific thing. However, I do call these out from time to time. If I've gotten really stylized in my gathers around the waist, I tell them that this is natural from the tie, not a special stitch that I want them to add shearing or gathers at a specific point, because guaranteed I've had it where I've peeled back the tie, and sure enough there's a stitch right through the middle of the dress or the jacket or the shirt where the tie is, that's created additional shearing or additional gathers that were not intended. And so it's really important to say these are natural shearing. Natural. I'm going to just make a little note. All gathers in image are from natural shearing. And that means there is no seam or gathers added below the tie. Okay? We'll say belt just in case someone's confused, but it's that specific. This is a time where you want to be as clear as you possibly can. So I'm going to stop here because you kind of get the general idea. We will teach this in much more detail, but I wanted to give you an idea of what you should expect regarding callouts. Two different methods. One where you use the wand method, and you can see how these are done, and then two, where you may do the letter method. So hopefully this really helped you to get a chance to see all the different ways that we work, and then what the technical designer is actually doing. This is so important in how you finesse the communication between your intended design, your intended work, and what happens when it actually gets to the factory. So this is, you know, these tech packs get ripped into different pieces, you know, meaning a couple pages for you, a couple pages for you, a couple pages for you, and they may not ever come together again. So echoing critical information, the style, delivery times, aesthetic, the desired outcomes as often as you possibly can will help you to reduce the amount of samples that you need, because the accuracy in your communication at this point will be rock solid. So we look forward to supporting you. This is really just a toe dip. Again, we're just introducing the ideas here. We will be teaching this in much more detail, and we would love for you to join us. We'll be starting an Eventbrite series here soon, as well as teaching some tech packing with the Fashion Incubator. So we look forward to talking with you guys and getting a chance to share with you more about that in the future. So again, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you guys next week for Workshop Wednesdays.